rioters who stormed the Capitol. And so far, prosecutors have filed charges against 15 people in federal court. They say there will be more, and they're revealing details about several of these charges. Of course, most notoriously, they've arrested and charged Richard Barnett. He is in custody in Arkansas, and he was the one, Brooke, you mentioned. He was photographed with his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. You know, he bragged to a local TV station in Arkansas that he stole an envelope from her desk, but he is now under arrest, taken into custody in Little Rock, Arkansas, and he is facing federal charges. And that's in addition to Derek Evans, that delegate for the West Virginia legislature. He reported himself storming the Capitol. He's now facing federal charges. And then prosecutors are also releasing more details, Brooke, about how this riot could have been much worse. They've arrested a man whose truck was found near the Capitol, and inside, they had previously told us they had found 11 Molotov cocktails that were ready to go. But now they're telling us they also found 2 handguns, an M4 assault rifle, gasoline, and also materials for homemade napalm that's used to make bombs and flamethrowers. So, Brooke, today we're getting the information about the people charged. We expect more people to be charged, both in federal court, and we're seeing people in the local D.C. courts as well, Brooke.
Listen, if you deny COVID, you don't believe in masks, you don't wear masks, you go mob, raid, incite violence on the Capitol, you're going to get your picture taken, and they're going to come and find you. Jessica Snyder, thank you so much. With me now, CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Elliot Williams, and CNN counterterrorism analyst and former CIA counterterrorism official Philip Mudd. Gentlemen, great to have you on. Elliot, just flat out, could the President of the United States actually face any charges here?
He could. At a minimum, you could have an investigation of the president for what would be inciting a riot. Literally, there's a federal riot act, for lack of a better term, that lays out, when you have when you have a group of individuals engaging in acts of violence. The problem is just going to be tricky to convict him of it. Like I said, you could investigate him for it, but you're going to have to prove that the specific acts of violence were at the behest of the person who urged them. Now, the president can certainly have the defense that, well, I was urging people to protest as is their right under the First Amendment, but those guys who were engaged in violence, that wasn't me. It's just going to be harder to prove, but you could certainly charge it and you could certainly investigate it.
And then, Phil, all these people, as I mentioned, not wearing masks, so they're easily caught on video. They're being identified. You heard Jessica say the one guy's like bragging back home on his local news about how he stole whatever from Nancy Pelosi. I mean, not exactly a brilliant move, but great for law enforcement. They're now going home, various corners of the country. They're trying to hide some of them, scrubbing their social media. How does law enforcement track them all down?
Boy, there's a lot of work going into this. Look at what's available to law enforcement now. It's not only what they put up on social media and whether you can recover that later. You can. It's obviously what's on the video feeds going on in the Congress. Remember, just that day, when the day of the riot, there were FBI officials who went into that building. I presume that was for evidence collection, not only photographing the damage, but making sure that they recovered the video from that facility. And then the great revolution in the past few years, how many people took cell phone video, whether they were in the facility or not? So I think there's going to be not only a ton of evidence, but 50 people sounds like a few. A lot more prosecutions in the coming days. By the way, just one quick moment here on what the President-elect said, Biden. We just heard him on CNN a few minutes ago. I got to tell you, I was really surprised about what he said about the inauguration and encouraging Donald Trump, the president, not to attend for one simple reason. You realize the president has said that he wants to support a smooth transition. He has not said that he accepts the legitimacy of the election. I think that distinction is significant. If the president were to go to the inauguration, it makes it much harder for him to say, I do not accept Biden as the legitimate president of the United States. I think it's a mistake for President-elect Biden not to encourage the president to attend.
I hear you. I appreciate you saying that. That's why we keep referring to that video from yesterday as the non-concession concession. And, Biden essentially saying he's thrilled he's not going to be coming because that's the one thing, that they can all agree upon, because this president, according to the president-elect, is just like this total embarrassment. Elliot, to the point, though, on that Phil was making about all these folks being prosecuted, all these rioters, how could they be charged, and how much jail time are we talking?
could potentially lie, and just to repeat the protest chant, lock them up, lock them all up, and they could potentially face a lot of charges. Now, look, there's no federal domestic terrorism statute that would allow for enhancements simply for the fact that there's terrorism, but there's all kinds of charges that these folks could be charged with: trespass, seditious conspiracy, damaging federal property, threatening federal officers, obstructing a proceeding of Congress, all kinds of things. Now, the far more important point, though, even more than the penalties, is they really need to be tried in the District of Columbia. Now, many of them can and ultimately, sadly, will be tried in their jurisdictions back home, like this individual in Arkansas. The federal law probably will allow him to be tried in Arkansas. Look, if you're a prosecutor, you want the most friendly jury possible, and the jury you want is a jury pool of people who live in a place, work for the federal government, don't want to see their city terrorized, and are more likely to vote for a conviction. I think they're sort of playing with fire by letting all these guys go back home, get arrested back there, and be tried, frankly, in far more friendly jurisdictions. So bring them back here, or they should have arrested them when they were here and charged them. But it's potentially years of jail time, because a lot of these offenses could potentially be stacked on top of each other. And remember, there's acts of violence inside the Capitol building, and anyone who's present there can be charged and tried with some of the violent offenses and damaging property that other people engaged in. It's called accomplice liability. Everybody's these sort of thuggish accomplices working with each other, and even if you're not the guy who broke the window, you could still be charged with it.
So given the violence that we've seen, right, the proven violence from this minority of Trump supporters this week on the Capitol, Phil, last question to you is just inauguration. 12 days away, held out in the elements. How do we know that Biden and Harris will be safe?
I think there's a couple of things. First, obviously you'd expect to see a security presence that's unprecedented, but also one of the questions from the past couple of days is, why didn't federal authorities, including and Capitol Police authorities, see what was happening on social media and react more aggressively? I can guarantee you the feds, working with state and locals, are going to be looking not only at people who were involved a few days ago, but at anybody who's been in some of these circles like QAnon to see if there's talk about the inauguration. A lot of preemptive work behind the scenes that's not physical, that's digital, Brooke.
Planned this whole thing, executed it, broad daylight. Failure at so many levels. Phil Mudd, Elliot Williams, guys, thank you so much. I want to pivot and talk COVID. Breaking news on the coronavirus. A huge announcement from the White House task force about a fast-spreading USA variant.
Insurrection at the Capitol. How did it happen? Who was behind it? Where will we go from here? Wolf Blitzer hosts CNN Special Report, The Trump Insurrection, Sunday at 10.
Nuts.com has something for everyone to love. Incredible nuts, dried fruits, organic snacks, and gluten-free treats.
Best pistachios ever.
Love the dried peaches. Can't stop eating them.
White chocolate toffee cashews are awesome.
So check out nuts.com.
Welcome to the back of your mind. This is where we learn how to eat with Noom. Noom's all about eating wisdom. Limitless eating wisdom. Who's that? Oh, that's Jasmine. She lost over 20 pounds with Noom. Oh, she loves that xylophone. Cool. I play a little guitar.
Let's get checked for a full range of conditions. Let's get fast, accurate results. Introducing Let's Get Checked. Health testing you do at home. Know your health. Know yourself. Order now at letsgetchecked.com. This new year, let's wake up to a different kind of resolution. To gain when everyone tells us to lose. Let's let the calm in. Find strength we never knew we had. Rise to any occasion. And realize all we can do. Get more out of this year with Fitbit Premium.
Introducing Fidelity Income Planning. We look at what you've saved, what you'll need, and help you build a flexible plan for cash flow that lasts. even when you're not working, so you can go from saving to living.
Do you suffer with sensitive teeth, gums, or even mouth sores? Many of my patients do. That's why I recommend Closest mouthwash. It's like first aid for your mouth. Closest is specially formulated for people with sensitive mouths, with a gentle mouthwash for every person in the family. There's Closest mouthwash in sensitive and ultra sensitive that's pH balanced to be as gentle as water. The patented formula effectively kills harmful bacteria while leaving the good bacteria you need for exceptional oral health. For my patients 55 and older, I recommend Closest Silver Mouthwash. The non-irritating rinse has all the same benefits, and it's also designed to strengthen enamel that weakens as you age. And for even better results, use the soothing, sulfate-free Closest toothpaste. You can have a healthy mouth and fresh breath without painful burn and irritation. Soothe your sensitive mouth with the gentlest oral care ever.
Get Closest now at Target, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart.
Joint pain, swelling, tenderness.
My psoriasis. Cosentix works on all of this.
Cosentix can help you look and feel better by treating the multiple symptoms of psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor about an infection or symptoms. If your inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen, or if you've had a vaccine or plan to, serious allergic reactions may occur.
Watch me.
Get real relief with Cosentix.
At Home Chef, delicious and simple go hand in hand. Like a pot and lid, like salt and pepper. Point is, they go together. So what are you waiting for? Get $90 off your first month at homechef.com. Home Chef.
Did you know you can go to libertymutual.com to customize your car insurance so you only pay for what you need?
Really? I did. Okay, I'm on vibrate.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Want to brain better? Unlike ordinary memory supplements, Nariva has clinically proven ingredients that fuel 5 indicators of brain performance: memory, focus, accuracy, learning, and concentration. Try our new gummies for 30 days and see the difference.
Closed captioning brought to you by mesobook.com.
Mesothelioma is all we do. For over 10 years, we have offered a free book on mesothelioma. Call 1-800-500-1931.
All right, we've got some more breaking news out of Washington now as calls are mounting for the President of the United States to resign for his role in inciting the deadly siege on the U.S. Capitol earlier this week. Michael Chertoff served as the Homeland Security Secretary under President George W. Bush, and he joins me now by phone. So, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for jumping on with me. Welcome.
Happy to invite.
Let's just start with, what is the danger in President Trump remaining in office for 12 more days?
Well, we don't know what he's going to do with the residual amount of power that he has, and we also don't know what he won't do that should be done if he's not paying attention to things like the COVID virus or, for example, the major cyber attack that we suffered from the Russians that involved penetration of a lot of enterprises. I mean, we need to have a president on top of his game at every minute, and right now we have a president who's checked out, basically.
When you looked at the images from this week, these people, the rioters, Mr. Chertoff, with, Auschwitz sweatshirts and nooses and Confederate flags flying alongside Trump flags, they were inside our Capitol. How do you wrap your mind around that, number one? And number two, how does the United States send the message? I can't believe I'm even having to ask it this way, but that white supremacists are not welcome here.
Well, I mean, I have to say this is one of the most shocking images I saw this last Wednesday I've ever seen in my life, and that includes September 11th when I was on duty at the Department of Justice. And we've had experiences with white supremacists before. I mean, we remember Oklahoma City, which was, of course, tragic and resulted in the death of a lot of people, including children. So I think there's got to be a firm statement from leadership that this is intolerable. And law enforcement has to really make domestic terrorism as much of a priority as global jihadism is. And one thing I'm confident of is the incoming President Biden, understands this. And I know Merrick Garland, and I know he understands it because he was actually involved in the prosecution of Timothy McVeigh. So if we can hang in here for another dozen days, I feel we're going to turn a corner.
It's like, I know you and so many of our national security officials, know how to focus on battling, the jihadis, right? But we're talking about caravans of these people in our own country. As far as politics goes, Mr. Secretary, we're starting to see more Republicans come forward and condemn President Trump, but still he has his strong supporters. The Republican Party is pretty much ripping apart at the seams. What damage does this split create long-term in the Republican Party?
Well, let me say, first of all, my main concern is with the United States of America. I mean, political parties are one thing, but that's not where I find myself feeling loyalty. Well, I find myself feeling loyalty to the U.S. and the Constitution, and preserving that and preserving our constitutional values are the main thing to me. I think Republicans are going to have to make a judgment whether they want to restore the party as a party that has kind of centrist conservative views on a whole range of issues and believes in American values, or whether they want to steer in the direction of what we've seen in other parts of the world, where you basically have authoritarian or extremist parties that operate at the fringes but never can actually command majority public support.
I bring it up just listening to the president-elect a moment ago, talking about the Republican Party, because obviously the president played a huge role in all of this, but so did a number of Republicans up there on Capitol Hill. Even said, the Josh Hawleys and the Ted Cruzes of the world are in on the big lie, and it's how this party moves forward and disavows, some members of their own party. Michael Chertoff, thank you so much for jumping on the phone. Great to have you on. Thank you.
Good to be on, bro. Take care.
The Republican Party is a mess, virtually in tatters. The president seemingly delusional about his crumbling administration, could be days away from being forced out of office less than 2 weeks before his term ends. And yet these realities still have not stopped some Republican lawmakers and supporters and Donald Trump himself for spewing false claims about who actually stormed the U.S. Capitol this week and who tried to stop this deadly riot. CNN's Daniel Dale is here with the fact check on all of this. Daniel, run through it for me.
Brooke, there is, as usual, a boatload of bad information going around, and some of it is, as usual, coming from the president himself. Let's go through 5 of these false claims. Number 1, some Republican officials, including Alabama Congressman Mo Brooks, Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar, have claimed that it wasn't Trump supporters responsible for this violence, that it was a provocation by left-wing Antifa. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz cited an article in the Washington Times as supposed evidence. Listen to what he said in Congress.
I don't know if the reports are true, but the Washington Times has just reported some pretty compelling evidence from a facial recognition company showing that some of the people who breached the Capitol today were not Trump supporters. They were masquerading as Trump supporters, and in fact, were members of the violent terrorist group Antifa.
Guess what? That article in the Washington Times turned out to be so totally false, the paper deleted it.
They bring this up to speed, I should say.
Yeah, more broadly, the claim that this mob was some sort of Antifa production is just bonkers, Brooke. An FBI assistant director said they have no indication of an Antifa role at this time, and we know the mob violence was perpetrated by Trump supporters, some of whom we know by name, by sight, and many of whom identify themselves on camera as Trump supporters after a pro-Trump rally, which Trump himself had told people to come to D.C. to attend, during which he personally told people to go march on the Capitol. And then, as all this was happening, Trump posted a video telling the rioters they were very special and that he loved them. So, Antifa, come on. Number 2, Brooke, listen to what Trump said in his Twitter video yesterday.
I immediately deployed the National Guard and federal law enforcement to secure the building and expel the intruders.
That is just not true. Now, I'll caution we don't yet have a complete accounting of what happened. We'll learn more with time. But we know from reporting by CNN, the New York Times, and others that it was not Trump who ordered the Guard deployed, that Trump was in fact reluctant. In fact, a public account from the Pentagon does not even mention Trump. It says the acting Defense Secretary, Chris Miller, activated the Guard in response to a request from the mayor of Washington, D.C. And Miller's statement at the time of the activation did not even mention Trump as well. It said Miller had spoken with Vice President Pence, not Trump. Number 3, there are just ludicrous claims going around the conservative-leaning social media app Parler, in which Trump supporters are claiming that the video you just saw a clip of, in which Trump criticized the mob and conceded the election, essentially, is a deep fake. In other words, that it's not actually Trump, it's a sophisticated computer-generated replacement. What do you even say to that? The president posted this video from his own Twitter account. Some subset of his supporters has, frankly, just gone off the deep end. And number 4, most of the bad info is coming from the pro-Trump side, but there's also some coming from the anti-Trump side. Some tweeters have gotten millions of views suggesting that a Donald Trump Jr. video depicting the president at the White House watching the rioting and cheering it on, saying that that video was taken at the White House and showed the rioting being watched by the president and cheered by the president. In fact, the video in question was taken at the Ellipse, which is a park, not at the White House, and it was before the violence at the Capitol. In fact, before the president even spoke to that supporters rally. It does not show him cheering the violence. Now, there's no defending Trump's conduct on that day, but his critics need to be accurate as well. But number 5, whenever a dramatic incident happens, you get some people basically claiming it wasn't real, that videos of it were staged by some shady forces. There are millions of views on such a claim about a video showing the mob approaching a Capitol police officer in the video who keeps retrieving an alarm up a staircase as he awaits backup. That claim is, of course, absolute nonsense. The video was taken by a HuffPost reporter, Igor Bobik. The officer was clearly outnumbered, clearly anxious. There was nothing at all inauthentic about that clip. So in summary, Brooke, disinformation, lies caused this whole calamity, and the disinformation and lies are not going away afterward.
Thank you for walking us through each of those 5 things and fact-checking, reminding us of these conspiracies and how a good chunk of this country is thinking and believing and calling it out as wrong. Daniel Dale, thank you.
Thank you.
For the first time ever, the U.S. reported more than 4,000 deaths in a single day yesterday, and now the White House task force says it's possible there may be this fast-spreading USA variant of COVID. Erica Hill is a CNN anchor and national correspondent, and she's with me now. And so, Erica, what is this variant here?
So what we're learning is, as you know, the White House task force puts out these reports to states. So the one from this week has said, as you point out, there may be a U.S. variant, may have its own version of the virus that is spreading that is more transmissible, that could be related to the spread. But it's really important to point out there is no hard evidence right now that there is in fact a U.S. variant that is fueling this more aggressive spread, that is fueling these numbers we're seeing. We also saw in that state report from the task force that the fall and winter surge, that surge has been nearly twice what we saw in the spring and summer. Where is it coming from? Experts have been warning for months, Brooke, what would happen if more people traveled, if people didn't wear masks. We're coming off a busy holiday travel season as we saw. So the question rather is what to do. Well, in this report, they note that the aggressive mitigation is going to be needed to meet a much more aggressive spread. That would include more masking, and they also recommend immediate vaccination of as many people as possible. As you know, of course, that is certainly something that's being discussed a lot these days. Brooke?
Listening to the president-elect there, talking about benchmarks he has once he takes office January 20th in terms of vaccinations, in terms of mask wearing. Here's hoping that there will be a change for the better. Lives need to be saved. Erica Hill, thank you so much for the update there on the variant here in the U.S. Thank you for being with me. I'm Brooke Baldwin here in New York. Let's go to Washington now. The lead with Jake Tapper starts right now.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Welcome to the lead. I'm Jake Tapper, and we begin today with breaking news. Just moments ago, CNN obtained a draft of the article of impeachment against President Trump that House Democrats plan to introduce on Monday. The single article, incitement of insurrection. This is all happening in the final 12 days of the Donald Trump presidency, which has ended, of course, with death and destruction. A violent terrorist attack by his supporters on the U.S. Capitol, resulting in 5 dead, including a U.S. Capitol police officer. Minutes ago, President-elect Joe Biden said he is focused on his agenda. He's leaving impeachment up to Congress. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy said today that impeaching the president would, quote, only divide our country more, unquote. Keep in mind, McCarthy has been leading the charge to divide the country with these unhinged lies about the election. Even after blood had been shed and the Capitol ransacked by MAGA terrorists, McCarthy voted for that seditious effort to disenfranchise millions of legal voters from Arizona and Pennsylvania based on the deranged conspiracy theories. Right now, White House advisors tell CNN that President Trump has zero intention of resigning. Instead, sources say the plan for now is for President Trump to leave Washington, D.C. for Mar-a-Lago in 11 days on January 19th. President Trump tweeted that he will not attend President-elect Biden's inauguration on January 20th. Biden minutes ago calling that decision, quote, one of the few things he and I have ever agreed on. It's a good thing, unquote. President-elect Biden going on to say the outgoing president is an embarrassment to the United States and has never been fit to hold the office. Let's get straight to CNN's Manu Raju, live on Capitol Hill. Manu, walk us exactly through what President Trump is accused of doing in this draft of the article of impeachment.
Yeah, this draft narrowly tailored about the president's actions after the elections, saying he is going to be impeached for a, quote, incitement of an insurrection, detailing his actions after the elections, detailing what happened on Wednesday that led to the deadly violence of his mob, the mob that came to Capitol Hill. And also in this article, it says it would disqualify him to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. Significant, of course, because the president won't be the president anymore come January 20th, Jake.
House is controlled by Democrats, so it wouldn't surprise me if they were able to pass this, but you need 67 senators to go along with this to remove the president from office. That body is still controlled by Republicans. Are there 67 votes in the Senate to impeach and remove the president from office?
It's hard to see that at the moment, but this is such a developing situation that it remains to be seen exactly when the senators could vote on whether to convict this president, because the Republicans currently led by Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, he will no longer be Majority Leader come January 20th, and there's no appetite among McConnell and Senate Republicans to bring the Senate back into session and have an impeachment trial next week. Next week is when we expect the House to vote to impeach the president, assuming they go down that route. So then when the Senate flips hands, what do they do? That's a big question, because Chuck Schumer will be the Majority Leader come January 20th, and they can still move forward with an impeachment trial even after Donald Trump has left office. And if they were to convict Donald Trump after he left office, it would prevent him from running for president ever again. Those are questions that Democrats discussed, Jake, on a conference call this afternoon. One of the concerns that was raised is how that would look for the incoming Biden administration. Could it be awkward for them as they're trying to present a unified vision for this country, as they have pushing an ambitious agenda, as he's trying to get his cabinet filled? All of those are difficult political questions that they're trying to sort out now. In a key conference call this afternoon, Jake, Nancy Pelosi is going to speak with Joe Biden. And when Joe Biden talked about impeachment this afternoon, he did not embrace it. He said it's up to Congress, and that's something that Democratic leaders are still sorting through, Jake.
All right, Manu Raju with the breaking news on Capitol Hill. Thanks so much. White House advisors say President Trump has no intention of resigning despite this pressure because he, quote, doesn't think he did anything wrong, unquote. Meanwhile, sources say a longtime Trump aide and the White House counsel are both considering resigning from their posts, as CNN's Caitlin Collins now reports.
Surprising no one, President Trump announced he will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th, breaking a long-standing tradition for outgoing U.S. presidents. Instead, CNN has learned he and First Lady Melania Trump are currently scheduled to depart Washington for Mar-a-Lago the day before Joe Biden is sworn in. While Trump's absence was not unexpected, the move undermines a commitment he made last night in this video that senior staff convinced him to make by warning he's at risk of being removed from office.
A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power.
With less than 2 weeks left, the West Wing is in crisis mode amid a growing threat to impeach Trump again, a wave of resignations, and his former staffers calling on him to step down.
You would feel safer today if President Trump resigned and Vice President Mike Pence took over?
I would. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is the latest to announce she'll leave before Trump's term ends. And CNN has learned that two other top aides, White House counsel Pat Cipollone and senior advisor Hope Hicks, have also discussed resigning. Trump still hasn't spoken to Pence after he defied him by following a constitutional process to certify Biden's win. But Pence was seen arriving at the White House today. While Democrats are threatening to impeach Trump if Pence doesn't lead the cabinet in invoking the 25th Amendment, which would rob him of his power, some Republicans are getting behind the effort.
I will definitely consider whatever articles they might move, because as I've told you, I believe the president has disregarded his oath of office. What he did was wicked.
Amid bipartisan concerns about what Trump will do during his last 12 days in office, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi told Democrats that she talked to the nation's top military leader about ensuring that the president doesn't launch a nuclear attack.
This is urgent. This is emergency of the highest magnitude.
After announcing she spoke to Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley, Pelosi wrote, "The situation of this unhinged president could not be more dangerous, and we must do everything that we can to protect the American people from his unbalanced assault on our country." Now, Jake, a Capitol police officer has died from injuries that he sustained as that pro-Trump mob attacked the Capitol on Wednesday. And in the hours after we have learned about his death, you've seen the flags at Capitol Hill have been lowered to half-staff in response to his death. And while the White House put out a statement earlier today saying they extend their deepest sympathies to this officer's family, given that he is only the fourth officer to die in the line of duty since this force was founded almost 2 centuries ago, you'll notice that the flags at the White House are still at full staff. They have not been lowered as the ones at the Capitol have been, and we've asked the White House multiple times if they plan to do so or why they haven't so far, but Jake, they haven't responded to us yet.
President Trump has blood on his hands. Kevin Collins, thanks so much. Minutes ago, President-elect Biden said it's a good thing that President Trump was not attending the inauguration, but said the invitation for Vice President Pence to attend still stands. Pence has not said what he's going to do. Biden did not mince his words. He called President Trump an embarrassment. He said he was not worthy or fit to hold office, and he's one of the most incompetent presidents ever. CNN's Arlette Saenz joins me now from the banks of the Christiana River in Wilmington, Delaware. Arlette, you asked President-elect Biden about his stance on impeaching President Trump. What did he say?
Well, Jake, President-elect Biden told me he believes that the president is unfit to serve, but ultimately this decision about impeachment he believes should be made by Congress. I pressed him on this twice. Take a listen to one of his answers.
What the Congress decides to do is for them to decide. But they're going to have to be ready to hit the ground running.
And the president-elect said that if this was taking place 6 months ago, then they should be moving forward for impeachment or finding a way to get the president out of office. But in this moment, he believes the fastest way to get President Trump to leave the White House is by inaugurating and swearing in President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris. And as for that inauguration, the president-elect said that that is the first thing that he has agreed with President Trump on his decision not to attend, saying it's a good thing. Jake?
Arlette Saenz in Wilmington, thanks so much, appreciate it. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. We have the text of a draft of your article of impeachment. What specifically are you charging the president with, and why is this not happening until next week? I mean, there are only 12 days left in the administration.
So this is an article of impeachment that I've worked on with Congressman Ted Lieu and Congressman Jamie Raskin, and we include a single article, incitement of insurrection, which really focuses on the president's efforts to really disrupt or have his supporters disrupt a sacred proceeding of the Electoral College by promoting this lie that he won the election by millions of votes.